Hello, everyone. This is Rebecca Green for the Whiny Palooza podcast, and I am super excited today because I get to speak with the fabulous Christina Fletcher. Christina, thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. As soon as I saw the name of your podcast, I was like, I want to be on her show.
I have to tell you, I have wanted to change it so many times, and everyone is like, do not change the name.
No, don't change the name. I'm sorry. You're stuck with it.
The goofiest name we could come up with, but I want to tell you
I'm
about
about.
Christina. I was looking through all of Christina's credentials and I was like, I have got to talk to this woman. I mean, she's amazing. I cannot believe what she's done with her life. She Let's start and tell you about it. Her experience is enriched by 20 years of parenting and home education. She is a spiritual awareness coach, which I can't wait to hear about. She's an energy healer, author, speaker, podcast host, parenting coach. She studied homeopathy, matrix healing, is it called? Quantum healing. I mean, the list goes on and on. Her educational background, which I am so not surprised since I've met her, includes religious studies and professional theater. I can totally tell that you have theater training.
It serves me
this,
well.
this enhances her public engagement skills. She lives in the UK, which is super cool to me, with her family. Christina's journey reflects a blend of personal, academic, and professional experiences, contributing to her holistic approach to spiritual life and parent coaching. Oh my goodness, how did you fit all of that in?
Okay, when you say it as a list like that, I'm wondering that myself. It's just kind of game.
Like seriously, when my producer brought you to me, I was like, sign me up yesterday. Like, what a freaking impressive list. And I want to hear about all of it. But like, can we start with how did you become a spiritual awareness coach and energy healer? I want to start there. Tell us about your journey.
Well, and I think it's important to note, especially for this podcast, that it actually started off as spiritually aware parenting coaching years ago. So it
Ah,
has actually fine-tuned. I was niching into parenting for years. Um, but basically the journey started off with me being all about spiritual development for my own personal self. So even
mm,
before kids, I was studying all about self-help. I was passionate about inner development and doing the inner work. I was all about meditation. I was working on this in various ways. And then through my own journeying, I ended up manifesting meeting my husband, and we met on this magical kind of like he was in the UK, I was in Canada. All of a sudden, it was like boom! I needed to go to the UK, and we met, and we were engaged within 3 weeks, and it was just like whoosh. So within this magical experience, though, then we ended up with two children. Well, actually, three children, but we had two children within a very short period of time. So our daughters are 10 months apart.
oh my
And it
goodness.
was like all reality crashed upon our heads. And all of my programming of what a parent really was kind of shoved in my face. And I was like, well, how do I fulfill the role? And my spiritual development, my self work that I'd been doing, got pushed to the sideline.
Mm.
And I became the mom I thought I should be. And she was not the nicest person. Like she was shouting and she was stressed all the time and my kids weren't happy and I wasn't happy and my husband didn't know who he'd married and it
Yes.
just
Yeah.
all fell apart. And so my journey really started there in that kind of crux of a moment because it was like I needed to remember who I was and who I wanted to be so I could be the parent that I wanted to be for my kids. Fast forward a few years after practicing this and working with my kids with this and learning so much about this from my kids and really figuring out how you could be spiritually aware in like small little moments. I didn't need to be
Mm.
meditating for long periods of time. uh, I ended up having a son in very spiritually guided pregnancy. So it was very a deep connection with him there. And after that, I wrote a book, and it started unfolding more as a career path of how to pass on spiritually awareness as a coach. So it was like it was my next child. My business was my next child, where it was like, oh, actually, okay, I have these resources, I have these tools. Parents need these tools. And so then I gathered more tools and more tools and more tools. And from being a spiritually aware parent coach, then when I finally realized my kids were no longer in the space of tantrums and even homeschooling, they're now in their 20s, I was like, well, I think I want to just focus on the spiritually aware coaching and shift from there. So
Mm.
that's the general story of how I squeezed all that in.
I love it so much. And I love that you were aware enough to know that you weren't happy about how you were showing up for your kids and you wanted to give them a different version of yourself. Like, I'm so impressed.
Oh, thank you.
Really.
Well, and
Yes.
it's an interesting thing when you all of a sudden, you know, I had the foundational tools underneath of saying, well, wait a second, I'm supposed to feel good about myself. I know myself. I'm supposed to like myself. I'm supposed to love myself. Like, this is who I am. I've been guided in all these magical spiritual ways, but for kids, now I'm always losing it and I'm always tired. And my kids are actually kind of frightened of me. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it was an interesting thing too. It was a very humbling thing to be able to say to your 4-year-olds, actually, I'm relearning this and this
Mm.
is what I'm doing. And so, my kids would say, Mom, you need to go meditate.
I love it. It's like kids telling their mother to go back to the gym.
Yeah,
I had a who told me her kids were like, you need to go run. So okay. So can you tell us what it looks like? So you're coaching, your spiritual awareness coaching. Can you tell us what it looks like to coach a parent with their parenting? And then can you tell us what it
sure.
looks like when it's not about parenting?
Sure. Well, and I mean, I will say the reason why I shifted away from the parenting into more spiritual awareness was because, quite frankly, I was passing on mainly the same tools, but then I was being
Yeah.
referred to people that weren't parents, and they were like, "Why am
Yeah.
I seeing you?"
Yeah.
So it really is very similar in the same way because all of my work is focused on, first of all, becoming the observer of yourself rather than being in a
Mm.
reactive space of yourself all the time. So we tend to, whether you're a parent or whether you're not a parent, whether you're just in stressful situations, we have a tendency to fall into the neural space, the regular existence of just reacting all the time. The kid makes a mess. Oh, we flip out. We end up in traffic. Oh, we get all stressed. It just builds into this general practice that stress is a go-to because it's a reactive space. So the first step in everything I teach is always about becoming that observer of yourself first, to start noticing when all of a sudden you feel that rising frustration, right? You might notice, like when you're with kids, you see the mess. Half the time, the mess that you're about to flip out about is actually following, a stressful morning, a stressful conversation, seeing something on your social media that maybe you didn't like. It's actually kind of built from somewhere that you don't always consciously acknowledge. So to become spiritually aware, it is actually about building that awareness to say, well, wait, how am I feeling at this moment? What's actually going on within me? Am I feeling safe in my body? Is my nervous system triggered? Am I reacting to what my husband said last night? Like what is coming in from me? Because you'll find that half the time it's not even your kids. So developing that, and then what I do as a coach is I offer you simple tools to unpack that really quickly in the moment. So it doesn't have to be, I'm going to go sit and journal for 10 minutes to talk about all my different feelings. It can just be like, oh yeah, I'm feeling off. Okay, I need to ground. I need to shift my focus. I need to tell a different story. I need to find myself a moment in time. And from there, then you can start acknowledging your child too, as then their reaction versus their helping them become an observer of themselves. So the difference between spiritually aware parenting and spiritually aware coaching is, as a spiritually aware parent coach, I always offered it as a three-tiered thing. So it was like knowing yourself, so the spiritually aware coaching part, you're unpacking, releasing all those stories that make you reactive and getting into the nitty-gritty. Then seeing your child as a spiritual being, as their own selves, not as what they're acting like, not just their behaviors. Their behaviors are usually reactive, you know?
Mm,
Then helping your child do the same for themselves.
wow.
So
That is
it's
really good stuff. And I think that going from being reactive, not even being aware of it, to then starting to be aware of it and figure out what's going on with yourself is such a huge shift in itself.
it is. It
Yeah.
is. It is. Yeah. When you start actually asking yourself, like I was talking to someone the other day and they're like, well, where do you start? Where do you start? I'm like, the simple question of actually saying, how am I feeling right now? You know, we've normalized stress. We've normalized feeling aggravated. We've normalized all these really negative emotions. And from like a spiritual awareness perspective, those are actually your heart's way of saying, hey, we can do, we're not really connected to our resources here. We're not really showing up here. That's actually a message. But we've
Yeah.
normalized keeping ourselves muted from that to fulfill. It's like we put ourselves through like a strainer, like where little pieces of ourselves can come through, but we don't get the whole version. And those emotions, that aggravation, that stress, that's literally what's trying to, like, that's your heart's way of saying, can we reset? Can we take a step back? Let's just look at this and actually show up. So
Well,
yeah,
and I don't think that people realize, I mean, I've really started to realize how many times I reset in the day. I mean, how many times it takes me to be like, oh, you need to reset again.
yeah,
Yeah.
but even that, like, let's celebrate that, because
Yes.
it's not so much about how many times you actually have to reset. It's how many times you actually do it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really important to actually go, oh, I need to reset again. It's that moment of awareness, the observance of, oh, yeah, I'm back again. No, I need to reset. That is where your power is. That's where you really change so many things. And we're not just talking about, oh, you're just changing your reaction. You're changing literally generations of your experience. This is like, we talk about generational trauma. This is how you do it. Because, especially as a parent, what are you doing? You are literally showing your kids the tools to reset themselves. It's
Yes.
it just
Yes.
ripples and ripples and ripples.
I
I'll
love,
never forget the first time I woke up. My son had been awake before. He's about 5, maybe 6. He'd been awake before me. He'd been doing stuff. Anyway, something had stressed him out. I wake up and I find him on my bedroom floor, sitting there meditating. He's like,
oh,
"Are you? What happened?" He's like, "I was having a bad morning, Mom." He's like, "I just having a bad morning." And and I was like, so that's how this works. Because I wasn't like, you
amazing.
better meditate. I was just saying, I'm having a bad morning. I need to go meditate. And that's how this works.
Yes.
So
Yes,
yeah,
100% ripple effect. I mean, I'm just reflecting on my latest development as a parent that my kids will come up to me while I'm stressed about something else and they don't know that I'm stressed about something else and I snap at them and it has nothing to do with them and I have to then be like, I'm so sorry, I'm stressed about something, you didn't do anything,
yep,
and calm myself.
yep,
But like first it took me being aware that I was snapping at them and it had nothing to do with them.
yep, yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what? It's such a perfect example because we've all done that. We've all like snapped. Um, And then if we don't observe it, it's like there can be so many different stories of like pride, or we don't want to admit that we brought our own baggage into it. So therefore it turns into, well, what did they do? And then we build up stories about them. And the snap
Mm,
turns into a frustration, and the frustration turns into
yes.
a set story. And then we're not seeing them as whole. We're just seeing them. as something we need to push against. And it all happens in the background, right? Like
Yes,
we have
yes,
programs running in the background of ourselves all the time. And so it's just stopping yourself in that moment and going, why did I just snap? Like why did I do that? And then going, oh my God, because I'm trying to figure this out. And just saying that, hey, I actually need 5 minutes. Let me get to you in 5 minutes. You know,
yes.
it's
And we expect ourselves to do so many things at once, and it stresses us out. Right.
100%,
Yes,
100%.
yes. You've hit the nail on
And
the head.
and honestly, a phone, like phones is like probably the worst thing that has come into our experience for these type of things ever, because we think we're just on our phone. It seems so, just every day, what's the big deal? We don't realize how often something's entering just into the background of our thoughts, and we get a little off about it. And then it just gets pushed aside. And then it's another thing, and then it's another thing, and then we pick up an email, and then it stacks, and then our kids come into us and we're like, rah, 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 rah. Oh my God, they're so annoying. And you're like,
So
you go,
good.
why am
Yep,
I annoying? I've done
yep,
nothing.
yep,
So
yep.
it's definitely a ripple effect. So spiritually aware parenting and spiritually aware living is all about that acknowledgement of saying, well, wait a second, I actually get to curate what's entering into my experience. And I also get to observe where I'm emotionally at and where I'm physically at and where I'm mentally at. And in that, then I get to realign every time I fall out of alignment to who I am. And from there, then I am showing up as the person I want to be with my kids.
And we want to be proud of our behavior. And it's not always, yeah, it's not always easy, but that's the goal every day, right?
And we want to be able to, and I think we also need to normalize the pride behind doing better. I have she's a fellow coach, and I remember her talking about when she first dove into like conscious parenting and spiritual parenting, and she made herself the promise that she was just going to do a little bit better every day, and that was what she was proud of. I
Mm,
think that we do have a tendency, and I think this is a bit of a pitfall in all of this inner work. We have a tendency to think we need to act a certain way to be successful. And that's where you don't like that. That's a pitfall in all of this, because it's not about how you appear. You want to be doing the work within yourself. And so, therefore, then it's actually just a little bit better. If you stop yourself 5 times from because you observe you're actually starting to get your heart a little bit faster, if you go, oh, my heart rate's just a little bit sped up. I'm breathing a little shallow. I'm not feeling very safe in my body. I'm going to take a moment, go stand outside, listen to the birds. If you do that twice one day and then 3 times the next, you have a lot to be proud of.
yes, and we need to give ourselves more credit. I love that. That's
Yeah.
for every single mother listening. Everyone relates to that comment. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
It's I always say your children didn't choose you because you know how to do this.
Right, right.
They chose you
Yes.
because they wanted to learn with you and they
Oh,
wanted to
I
grow
love
with you.
that. Oh,
Right?
that's
It's
beautiful.
they saw you and yeah, I want you now. Like, hey, like I always look at my oldest and I'm like, hey, you chose to come as the first. Like I'm it's like you could have waited.
I
You could have waited till
know.
like, your brother came around and I had all this stuff put together, but no. You're
Yep.
like, ah,
I mean,
glad I could help you, mom.
right? We don't need to be perfect. I always say they want imperfect you. They want you,
Yeah,
their mother.
100%.
So I
100%.
got to shift to homeopathy because I want to hear about it.
Ooh,
So I want to
okay.
hear about how did you get into that? Tell us about the homeopathy part and how you incorporate that into all the coaching and stuff that you do, or is it separate?
I don't practice too much homeopathy because I didn't get like, all the regulations and things like
Mm,
that. But
mm-hmm.
I would say that my journey with homeopathy, well, actually, okay, so I studied homeopathy when our second daughter was about 6 months, 9 months.
Oh,
And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually deep in quite a quite deep in postpartum depression. I
Mm.
wasn't like diagnosed, but I was spiraling and I was feeling the need for doing something else. So my husband, he's been in natural health for years. We were always practicing holistic things, and he was kind of like taking these courses, and I was like, I'm just going to grab one. I need something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing that the universe was actually lining up, that homeopathy was my first introduction to energy healing. Because
Ah.
homeopathy, for anyone who doesn't really know about it, it literally is energy, but it's become so, because it has a tablet to it, then we accept it as something else. Like
Mm.
you can take it, you can see it. But the basic of homeopathy is that you actually, if you have a rash, you take a plant or something that gives you a rash. I don't know if you know this, but you take something that gives you a rash and you actually put it in like a dilution, and you dilute it and you dilute it and 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 dilute it. You get rid of it, take the diluted water,
Wow. Okay.
drop it into like a sugar tablet, and that is the cure for the rash.
Oh my goodness. So my parents have a health food store, and I should know that. My mother's not going to be proud of me right now if she listens to this.
Well, it doesn't get talked. And so it doesn't get talked about very much in that
No.
simplistic of term, because there's a lot of different regulations that have come to it, and there's a lot of different beliefs, and of course beliefs change energy, but at the base, at the concept of it, that's what the fundamental beliefs are of it. And if you dilute it like 30 times, it will treat your physical body, but you can have dilutions up to like 1 million times. And I have heard stories of people taking a dilution of that and it literally transforming their trauma. Like if you can get it, but
Yes, I do know. Yep.
it's so specific. Like this has to be
Mm.
like like people who are like really, and like let's be honest, to be totally full disclosure here, I didn't have the patience to be a good homeopath.
Yeah. No, I can understand
Because
that.
you have to have like, you take every symptom and every symptom. It doesn't matter if you have like a funny little toenail, that needs to go in to figure out the right remedy. And so
Wow. It's
so
just, I am so fascinated by homeopathy. I think it's amazing.
and honestly, it really is. It's magic. And people don't
Mm.
talk about it as enough as it is a magical thing that we take as every day now. And somehow it's crossed over from something as, if we mention energy healing, people kind of go, I can't see and touch that. Do I really believe it works? But because you're taking something, it's an energy healing that has crossed into something our brains can accept. But it is magic, 100% magic. So it was
Amazing.
it was that really opened up this door for me, that I went, okay, wait, it's not all what it seems. There's this undercurrent, and it was about probably 6 years later that we were running a healthy restaurant, because my husband like is a chef and he was into nutritional health. So we were running a restaurant, and I was basically like front of house. I just did like the counter because everyone would come and talk. And that was actually where someone said to me, like, we're spending a lot of time talking. Have you ever considered being a coach? And I was like, okay, wait, maybe I should.
Mm. Perfect. What a perfect transition, though. And that sounds like
It
a fun
was.
job.
It was really stressful, actually, because I will never do the restaurant trade again. Anyone who out there doing the restaurant trade, kudos to you. It is lunch hour. We ended up closing for lunch because we were like, this is too stressful.
It's a lot.
It
It's a
is.
huge, I mean, I was a server back in the day, and it was a lot just showing up for my shift. I can't imagine
Yes.
owning it.
Well, and let's also add to the point that we were homeschooling 3 kids at the time. So
Oh
our
my goodness.
so
How the heck did you do that?
well, our daughters actually were servers. So it was a
Okay.
family business. So they were about 11 and 12 at the time. So it was part of their education. They were running
Nice.
cash and they were serving and they were dealing with customers, and it was
Perfect.
great. It
Yeah.
was really hard on my son. And that was one of the
Mm,
reasons that I was like, this has got to go, because he was about
mm.
3 and 4.
Oh,
And so, you're serving food as you carry. And building structures in the back room
Amazing.
to keep him, and sensory tables and all that good stuff. But I was like, no, gotta go.
Yeah.
But the reason why we had the restaurant in the long run was because a woman walked in and she's like, I teach energy healing. I need a space to
Mm.
offer these. Could we use your restaurant off hours? And I was like, yeah, as long as I can take the course, you can have it for free. And so I took the courses and it blew my mind. And I just went, this makes so much sense to me. And I actually got my daughters to take the course as well.
I
So
love it.
they got to understand that maybe their mother wasn't totally crazy, that other people were talking about this stuff,
Yep. Yep.
and that they were actually incredibly good at it, and they were very sensitive to it.
Oh,
And it was an incredibly empowering, and yeah, it was an empowering experience for all of us, and it really it set everything in motion, really. Yeah.
well, and everybody listening is probably like, what is energy healing and what does it look like? So can you enlighten us?
Sure, absolutely. Oh, talk about energy healing. Uh,
Awesome.
the it's really important to remember that everyone's an energetic being. You know, it doesn't matter if you believe in spirituality, if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm a science person. Even in science, we know that we're energetic beings. This is not,
Yes.
out of this world. And luckily, the modality that I learned in that restaurant was actually being taught to nurses as well. Like this was something that they use in the hospitals back over in Canada. It was a very simple, energetic understanding. So they scientifically, if you look at it like that, they showed on cameras that you have energy that flows from above you, flows all the way down through. We can say your chakras, we could talk about energetic systems, we can talk about your energetic worlds, but your basic structure of yourself. You can see that as an aura, so it flows around you and beams off of you. And then it also flows all the way straight through you.
Mm.
So that energy flows all the way down, and it is designed to flow all the way down through you, down your legs, down your feet, and ground into the earth. And so that, hence the term grounded. You imagine yourself like a conduit of energy. That's what all of us are. However, if you imagine all the stress and reactive things that we love to do, as we were talking about, that clutters that flow. And the key to any energy practice is to remember the phrase, where attention goes, energy flows.
Hmm.
Where attention goes, energy flows. And if we're all stuck up in our heads all the time, always thinking, all our attention is here, and the energy can't actually pass into any other part of ourselves. Hence, sometimes you feel more like your voice is rising up high. You start feeling, headachy. You can feel kind of like the room is spinning. It's all indicators that you just got so much energy build up in your upper worlds. So, as an energy healer, one of my jobs to do is to help clear out the clutter and to help you create more flow all the way down, just grounding you to the earth. A good description is if you imagine like a stream that flows down like a river or like down a mountainside type thing, and you get like little whirlpools in that stream. Then if you get like little clutter like leaves and debris that has happened over time, an energy healing is just about clearing out all of that debris and allowing that flow through.
I
That's
mean,
an
it
energy.
sounds absolutely wonderful to me.
It is.
So,
It
so I
truly is.
want I want to ask you a selfish question. So,
Ooh,
I think so my brother's a chiropractor. Okay, so
okay.
he could totally relate to everything you just said.
Yep.
And I think that would be why he was so concerned when I had to have an emergency C-section and then had to have two more because he was very concerned about the whole
Alignment.
energy, right? The whole
Yep.
energy flow of my body. So did the
Yep.
C-section mess up my energy flow?
That's a fantastic question. Um, it would have at the moment, at the time that it
Okay.
happened, it could
Okay.
have. Because there's a lot of different reasons for that. So something traumatic happens, and what do we know about trauma, right? It's like fight or flight, your whole nervous system goes, oh my God. So that is going to, if you imagine, if you imagine a stone dropping into that whirlpool, right? It's like splat, right? So energy flow scatters. Now, over time, though, energy adapts. It's not like a physical, it's not like blood flow. So you can easily, and either through seeing an energy healer or making sure that you're grounding and helping your energy to flow. There's a lot of different healing practices that you can do, but even the work that you're talking about, awareness of how am I feeling? How am I reacting? Do I need to reset? All of those things help bring your energy back into a grounded space, and it will actually facilitate even within the deeper healing of the trauma, as well as any physical healing that needs to happen as well. So it is, energy adapts. Energy, like, it literally does flow. It's not a question of, oh well, that's it. Energy, it's not. It's, that's the joy about
I
energy
messed it all
healing. No, 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 no. 100% not. And that's what's so wonderful about understanding energy healing is that it's just so, it's ease. It's a question of providing ease, and it's a question of knowing that you acknowledging the trauma, and you're acknowledging the splat in the in that field and that stream, but at the same time, just by where attention goes, energy flows. So within that, by giving attention to the ease, you are putting the energy back in place. you know my mom just had a hip replacement back in
Mm,
Canada, and I'm in the middle of a passport renewal here in the UK, so I couldn't go. And I also knew that my job was actually here because I was over here on the other side holding energetic space. So it was a question of offering her energy clearing, setting different crystals up for energy grids if you really want to go way out there. Like, it was a question of creating that flow and putting attention behind the healed version of herself. Because where attention goes, energy flows.
mm. We're essentially picturing what the goal is.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
I love it.
And and it's when you actually take, we talk about manifestation, we talk about visualization, we talk about all those things. Anybody who like kind of goes into any self-help bookstore now will actually start seeing all these things. But fundamentally, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at the fact that where attention goes, energy flows. So where do you want to put your attention? I
Yeah.
even I remember even in parenting, I was just telling my daughter this story because she walked in. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired. I haven't had any sleep. I'm so tired." I'm like, okay, well, honey, you have no idea. No,
She doesn't know what tired is
he doesn't realize this. I was like, "You wait."
yet. Oh
But
boy.
I remember I was like, just as a heads up, I was like, when you realize that where attention goes, energy flows. I remember when, my son was a baby and I was not getting any sleep, and I was homeschooling the two girls, and I was just like wiped, right? And I was telling myself the story of, oh my God, I've not had any sleep. This is so hard. Where attention goes, energy flows. I was literally bumping into doors for being so tired. And so
Mm,
then I observed the story I was telling myself, and I went, okay, how much sleep have I had? I was like, I had that hour. Like, oh, I'm going to put attention behind the fact that I had an hour sleep. And I had a great hour. That was a fantastic hour. And I would realize that suddenly I was fine in the day. I was like, I had an hour's sleep. I'm great. I don't know what other people's reactions to me, but I didn't feel tired.
oh my God, an hour of sleep. I remember that. Yeah, I don't want to do that again.
No, I know. Never again. I'll leave
Oh
that to
my
my daughter.
gosh. Well, that's interesting because we can apply that to anything in our life. Anything. I mean, I'm thinking about someone who annoys, I'm going to put annoys in quotes because that's what I've labeled it. I'm thinking
Yeah,
about someone who annoys me regularly. Well, I've labeled it that and focused on that, and so I keep getting annoyed.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's like, and it happens all the time. It happens with our kids, it happens with our spouses, it happens with, the guy who always serves us coffee wrong at the coffee shop. It always, there's always that person that we're like, they just can't get it right. And
Yes.
it's like, but the more we tell that story, it truly doesn't matter how hard that person works. They will never be able to fix that for you, ever.
Yeah.
I used to
That
put it
makes
to the
sense.
test. I would tell the story. My kids are so messy. They're so messy. They'll never, I clean the house and it's a mess again. And then you'd watch as it would be like, you could see them being like, we better clean the house for mom. And it would be like, they would go and they'd clean the house. And what would I notice? I would notice that they hadn't emptied the trash,
Oh,
or
yes. I
they'd
tell
left a
that
cup of
story.
coffee, right? It's like,
Yes.
oh, they left a glass on the table. And meanwhile, they're like,
Such a
right?
good example. We all understand that
We all do it.
example.
And
Yes.
we all do it. And it's
Yes.
important to remember, like this isn't, I don't want anyone to see that this is their fault. There's no shame in any of this, because we've all done it. We've also all had it told about ourselves. And it is important, and when we talk about, like, healing past trauma, or all of that juicy stuff that doesn't actually have to be as hard as people are always surprised when they meet with me. I'm like, no, we can clear this out really fast. Don't worry. It's okay. But when you actually start working through that stuff, you realize, oh, I was told I had to have a pretty clean house. And I was told that these things are more important than, us laughing together. And I was told, and you start realizing that you can let go of a lot of that stuff
Mm,
really easily, because you have to just decide, well, what do you want? What makes you feel happier? What makes you feel at ease? And
makes
that's
so much
that's again
sense.
all about observing where it's coming from and letting yourself be yourself and align in the moment of how you want to be.
I like that. I like that. I'm taking notes in my brain.
Go for it. Go for it.
So
By all means, go ahead.
I'm lots of files going on as I talk to you. So I don't want to put you on the spot if you can't remember someone in particular, but with no names, do you have a client in mind that you did energy healing work with where you saw like a huge shift in them? Anyone you can think of?
Oh, there's been so many interesting journeys with energy healing and clients. Um, I would say that, like, even there's so many that land all at once, right? Um,
Not an
Okay,
easy
actually, I'll tell the
question.
story. I'll tell this story. Worked with this woman, and she always had issues with her husband. She kept feeling like, she just couldn't trust. And these are the things that we're going to talk a little bit about, going beyond energy healing of just creating that flow, because this is the story that comes to mind. Um, and this is going to go a little serious. So anyway, did an energy healing on her, started working through clearing out all the clutter, clearing out all the clutter. And all of a sudden, these things happen once you start doing energy healing, on a general basis. All of a sudden, I get a sense that there's someone coming in,
Mm,
that there's someone that's kind of stuck in her field. And it felt like a grandfather type character. And it felt like someone coming in, basically kind of saying, can she please let me go? It was this very, like, she needs to let me go kind of
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
And so I did what I could of releasing and clearing and surrounding. And then afterwards, I talked to her. I was like, hey, there was a grandfather type of energy here, and I don't know, there definitely seems to be something that you need to cognitively do as well, because something needs to shift. And she burst into tears, and she was actually like, well, actually, my grandfather, um, he actually sexually abused me through my childhood.
Oh,
And she's like, I've been working on this for years, years
yeah.
and years and years, trying to clear this out. He's probably coming in to ask for forgiveness.
Mm.
Now, interestingly, I actually had to be like, he is asking you to let him go. You've got to let this story go. It's you've done the forgiveness, and he is truly sorry, but he's asking for you to actually let it go. And so it was within that all of a sudden she went, oh, is that
Wow.
actually the key in that? Like she realized that there was so much that she was holding on to this story for,
Yes.
identifying to this story, trying to heal the story for so long, but there was this whole bundle of validation that she wanted, and she wasn't going to get it like that. And so we did some more energy healing and more releasing, and it was within that all of a sudden she could feel free of it.
What a story.
It's those types of things that are really, some things happen in energy healings that you're a little like, I'm always like, okay, so this might sound a little off the wall, but
It sounds like my type of work. I need to look into this.
it's I you mentioned being in theater, and I have to say, like, being in theater, I did not realize that being in theater was going to serve my work so well, but
Oh
it
my
really
goodness.
does, because
Yes.
it allows you to feel into things in a different space and be bold enough to say, I there's some, there's this guy.
Perfect. I mean, it really, I make fun of my husband who is very into marketing and financial planning because you would never guess that he majored in theater in college. Like you would never guess based on the work that he's doing, but it it serves him in his work every
Yeah,
single day. And I was like,
yeah.
here, I made fun of it. I mean, I shouldn't have. It just doesn't go with what he's doing.
No, I
it
totally relate. I
I
totally
mean,
relate
it's
because
such
it
a good
doesn't, but
degree. So many
yeah,
skills comes with it, for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Well, even, eh, even the ability to, when you take improv classes and you're taught to like
Yes.
just say yes, just say
Oh, I
yes,
love it. Just say
just
yes.
try yes. And I remember, and the other thing that I always tell my kids, a teacher told me years and years ago, never, ever, ever say your character wouldn't do something, because
Mm,
every character will do anything in the right circumstance. And I go, that's so relatable to life.
that's
It's not
excellent
like
advice.
I won't do that. It's
I would never
actually,
do
do
this.
I choose to do that, or do I choose not to do that? Who do
Yes.
I want to be? And
Yes.
and it's really important to see those multi layers. I mean, like, we are covering so many layers in this conversation, but it is that's what we are. We're multi-layered people. You've got those cognitive stories going off, and they've been passed on, and then you've got like an emotional story going off, and that's what you're experiencing. And you've got your spiritual self, which is quite frankly going, let's expand, let's do this, let's grow. And most of the time your physical self is like, that feels scary, let's not do that. So
Oh my God, you're in our heads. You're doing the dialogue for us. I mean,
there you go.
so
Welcome to the theater of my world.
I love the theater of your world. It's really working. So I don't want to let you go without you telling us about you write. You like to write. You have
I
books.
do.
Tell us about writing in your books.
Okay, well, I do love to write, and I do have a few parenting books actually. That was the basis of my coaching. And I also co-authored a book called Owning Your Woo, a few years ago.
Ooh.
I will say too, though, as an exciting little development that you should bring that up. I actually am starting something called a Substack. And
Oh,
Substack, for anyone who doesn't know, is a writing app where you go on the app and you follow lots of different writers. You can find loads of different people on there, and you get blogs sent directly to your newsletter, or to your inbox rather. So they're like a newsletter on a general basis. And I'm really excited about it because it's a place where I'm really doing a lot of writing, little articles that are sent out to my list like a newsletter. But then there's also another little member element to it, which is like really like, it's like $7 a month. And you get like, I have a chat in there, and you can comment on different posts, and you get archives to
love
all
it.
the different things. And I'm rewinding all of this work back to fundamental foundational step by step in all of these blogs. So it's very simple. We need simple. I mean, people listening to this go like, this does not sound simple. It is simple. This can be very, very, very simple. It's what you're made to do. And I want to make sure people have the tools to do that. So that's really what my writing is all about. It's always about how do you integrate this? And I do have parenting books over on my website. I have one about pregnancy with my son. And I do offer very practical tools of how to, go through pregnancy and up to age 2 from a spiritual perspective. So that's all in there. And then I have some books on just like simple sayings that you can kind of grab as you go, kind of
Sounds
little pick me
amazing.
ups. And yeah,
You're a
I mean,
woman of
that's all that.
many talents, many, many talents,
Thank
as I
you.
told you when we started. So, as kind of last words to the parents listening. So, to the parents who are totally overwhelmed with life right now, can you just leave them with some words of wisdom? Your many
I would
words of
probably say my many, oh, there's so many. Okay, so for your brain, let's just say for your mind, for the stories that
yes.
you're telling yourself, the stories you're telling yourself in this chaotic moment, I would say this too shall pass.
Mm,
Parenting is one of the most um expansive, unbelievable journeys where you go from chapter to chapter to chapter. And I will tell you now, with a 21-year-old and a 20-year-old, well, my 14-year-old, he's a wonder of his own. But my 20 and my 21-year-old, as I watch them go through their chapters, and my parenting always has to change and shift and move.
yes,
And
yes.
this too shall pass. It goes from one chapter to the next. So don't get attached to the stories you're telling yourself. Take
Mm,
care of it.
such good
From a
advice.
spiritual perspective,
Yes.
from the spiritual energetic perspective, I would say you are so much more than your parenting. You are a spiritual being. And this is, I always say for parenting work, I always say, ditch the role and embrace a relationship, which means that when you embrace a relationship, be true to yourself. If something feels off to you, it's off. If something feels aligned to you, even though everyone says you're crazy to think it, it's on. Trust your spiritual guidance and get to know yourself. And when in doubt, where attention goes, energy flows. So focus on your feet, and all that energy will start to ground all the way down into the earth.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I want to know where can people like sign up to work with you? Like, where do
Oh,
they go to
100%.
find you and work with you? How do we
Yeah,
do that?
absolutely. So you can come over to my website, which is spirituallyawareliving.com. You will find sections on there where you can book a connection chat with me and we can talk about working together. I also have courses. I have a full-blown spiritually aware parenting course on there called
Oh,
Co-Parenting with the Universe, which takes you through step by step by step by step. All those 3 arcs are through there, and you can go through that. I have a free guide to releasing the guilt that that you've been holding on from society to really start tapping into how you feel. That's on there. And I also have a free quiz that you can take over on the website, which will be all about helping you figure out which world you need to align energetically. So, do you need to align the energy of your mind or your heart or your body or your spirit? That's on there too.
oh my goodness. I mean, I can't even tell you, like, you're talking about energy. So when I saw your name and read about you, I mean, if you knew how I felt when I read about you, I couldn't have been more right. I mean, this was so fantastic to talk to you. I absolutely loved it. And I think you're amazing.
Like, thank you so much. Well, honestly, I will say that when I saw the email come through from my assistant, she's like, okay, this one. I was like, oh, yes, this sounds amazing. I was like, it sounds so much fun.
Okay,
So
so I
again, thank you
will
so much.
change the silly name.
No, don't change the silly name. It was
Oh my
vibrant and
gosh.
it's fun.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
thank you for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I look forward to connecting to anyone who hears through this website and with you again. So thank you
Awesome.
again. Love and light, everybody.
Oh, I love that. Loving light. Well, I want to say, I hope that everybody spends every day laughing, learning, and loving. And I might have to add light to that. I love it.
Let the light in. That's what we're here for.
Bye, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for tuning in to the Whiny Palooza podcast. If you like what you heard, please be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. While you are there, leave a review. I love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.
This show has been produced by Market Domination, LLC. To discover how you can have your own show completely done for you and turn it into a real published book and become the authority in your marketplace, go to www.marketdominationllc.com/podcast offer.
49 faces looked to him in triumph. Over the last 12 months, they had each taken turns and promoted his business for a week at a time, driving over $987,342 in revenue. What if you had a network of 50 centers of influence who promoted your business every week for a year? Grab your copy of the #1 Amazon best-selling book, The Ultimate Guide to Growing Your Business with a Podcast, at 33% off the Amazon price by going to ultimatepodcastbook.com. Again, that website for 33% off the Amazon price is ultimatepodcastbook.com.